when somebody didn't show up, at our business, any of our workers, or my sister, or my brother, we had to fill in the gap. So, there was a lot of times I'm trying to pass by the back end of the restaurant to get to my car on a Friday night because I had a date. And my dad, where you going, boy? Dad, I got a date. He said, you sure do with that pot sink. Hit it. Let's get to work. Dad, I got a date. I'll give her a call. Maybe she'll want to come and help you. That never happened. So, but it could have been, a waiter. It could have been the fry cook. It could have been the saute cook. You name it. I did every job in that business. And so when I graduated high school, I'm going, I ain't ever going to do this. This is a stupid. Nah, I ain't doing this. Never say never. I was working in radio, but my father wanted to retire. And while I found out working in radio that I didn't like working for other people. So I made my dad an offer. The reason I didn't go back to acting is because I had a son. I knew that if I was to pursue that, I wouldn't be in his life. I'd be on the road all the time. So I'll do what I can locally as far as that's concerned, and I'm going to be in the restaurant business. So I kind of went into the back door, I bought it, and then I had to teach myself what to do. Food was always important to me, but I never looked at it as a real career until I was 28. So it came late because I had pushed it away for so long.
Did you do anything else other than being in the restaurant business for your culinary career?
Besides my restaurant? No. And that kind of bothered me, I had somewhat of an insular experience, all these other instructors here had worked at various restaurants and everything. And I was kind of worried about that, that I had maybe just one perspective, But you know what? My grandmother and my father both, I wouldn't have considered them Cajun cooks. The techniques they were doing were French. They were not Cajun. Now, did we eat gumbo? Well, of course we did. But, a lot of other stuff that they did, inherently, they were French. From that side of my father's family, our ancestors didn't come from Nova Scotia, like a lot of people around us, we came from France. They came from France. So my grandmother would made a cream sauce. It was a classic bechamel, but she didn't call it bechamel, she called it cream sauce. She made a hollandaise, but they called it a butter sauce. They didn't just call it what the French called it for whatever reason. So when I got here, I was a little intimidated, And one of the first jobs they gave me here was to be a sous chef or a certified master chef that was coming in to do a big dinner. And I was scared, But then, I did those preparations with him and for him, and he patted me and said, man, I couldn't ask for a better sous chef. After I learned what my grandmother and father taught me, because of the business environment was changing somewhat, we were predominantly a lunchtime place. I needed to become a fine dining dinner place. So I taught myself classic French cuisine. I bought every book I could get my hands on. I went out and I ate a lot. I stole recipes flagrantly. That's how I learned. I knew I had to teach myself. I didn't have time to go to culinary school. I had a business to run, and I had people depending on me. My employees, I had 24 employees that were depending on me for their livelihood. So I had to do it right. I had to learn it quick. And a lot of new stuff I was learning, I'd try out on my customers as guinea pigs, So no, I had a very insular experience. But you know what? I think I taught myself pretty good, and technique-wise. And of course, the work ethic I always had, which is, it's long days, but I found out there was nothing that those guys could cook that I couldn't cook. And I knew about that. I knew those classical techniques. So I said, I must have done something right.
What made you come to there? Or want to at least?
Yeah, well, it wasn't on my radar. I got to tell you, I kept seeing these two guys in my kitchen. In my dining room. I didn't know who they were, but I saw them for about 6-7 weeks, and I'd always drop by to say hello. We just didn't do the formal introductions or anything like that. Finally, one Friday after lunch, it was about 1:30, maybe 1:45, they sent a note to me by way of their their service person, asking me to come out into the dining room and talk to them. Well, it was Dr. Witham and Dr. Gerald Chesser. Gerald Chesser was the dean of the school. Witham taught the service classes and wine classes. Hi, Chef. We were with the John Paul's Culinary Institute. I had a few kids that were working for me from the Institute. How'd you like to come teach one night a week? Oh, no. Teach what? I said classical French cuisine. How do you know I know anything about classical French cuisine? About 6-7 weeks now we've been eating at your restaurant on Friday and Saturday nights, and you know a lot about classical French cuisine. I said, I don't know. Why? Why are you hesitant? He said, well, the last group of young people that came through my kitchen, they have a smart mouth, and they don't have no work ethic, you know. I don't know. He says, what? I said, well, okay, I'll tell you. I'm worried that some kid's is gonna mouth off to me, and he's gonna go to the hospital, and I'm gonna go to jail. And I'll never forget, Dr. Chesser looked at me and says, Chef, you will not even get a whisper of that. And here it is, 13, 14 years later, and I've yet to get a whisper of that. He was right, you know. So I started here in 99 as an adjunct, teaching one night a week. I think I did that for a couple of semesters. Then they asked me to teach a block, which in those days, there was 3 classes to a block. And each class only lasted 5 weeks. So with the same instructor, you did 111, you did 221, and 219. That was the first block. So basic foundations, fruits, vegetables, and farinaceous foods, and meat fat. That was the first block. It was a lot of information that we had to cram. Of course, we met with those classes Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. So you went to lab 3 times a week for that one class. It was overload, okay? I sold my restaurant in 2001, and about a month after, maybe 6 weeks after I sold the restaurant, they offered me a full-time position as an instructor. And my life changed. It was for the better.
Since being here at Nichols, what have you learned more about your own culinary put out and learning?
I learned that I have a lot to learn, as does anybody. You know, I mean, our graduates. You got to know that the subject matter is immense in scope. All right, there's just so much to know. You know, and even if the knowledge right now stood still, there's just so much to know. All different kinds of cuisines, international cuisines. Look in the United States at the regional cuisines within the United States. Look at the South, at the regional cuisines just within the South. Yeah, there's Cajun and Creole, but there's Tex-Mex. There's the Carolina Low Country cuisine, Gullah cuisine, Appalachian cuisine, Delmarva, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia cuisine, Florida cuisine, and with its Latin influences. The 3 nations of barbecue. It's a lot to know, you know? So chefs never stop learning. And a great thing about teaching was that it was an education for me, too. You know, I was never hesitant. If someone asked me in class, if a student that was on top of things asked me something that I didn't know, I'd tell them I didn't know. I'm not going to tell you something I know that I don't know. You know, but I say I'll know for next time and we'll discuss it. And why don't you do your research and I'm going to do mine and let's compare notes. All right? So, you know, it's you approach it by is that there's just too much for one person to know anyway. You know, one of the things that I was a little lax in probably was baking and pastry. The fact of the matter is that I hired pastry chefs for my business, so I wouldn't have to do that stuff. But now I'm a teacher, and I think I should know that. You know, so I took Chef Cosar's class, just like I was a regular student, you know. I asked him, told him, I said, you can't treat me any different, you know. I'm just any other student. He said, oh, don't worry. So he didn't cut me any slack at all. I came out second in that class. I'll never forgive Lauren Caldwell for beating me by less than a point. But I learned a lot. You know what I learned in that class? I learned I don't want to be a pastry chef. And I learned, you know, the biggest thing that was a revelation to me is that, you know, young people, that there's hope. There's a lot of good kids out there that really want to learn. And that's what, here I am, 13 years, like I said. Nothing but respect, nothing but kids that really want to learn. And that's the biggest thing that was the biggest revelation to me is that don't throw this generation away. I mean, these are young kids that are worthwhile. Because really, truly, I was very jaded about that before coming here. You know, and they proved me wrong. And what's, you know, and I get to keep up with the technology. That's changing every day. There's new foods being introduced all the time. You know, here I have been a professional cook for 35 years. I've been in a kitchen for 35 years, and there's not a week that goes by that I don't learn something. You know, of course we seek it out. You know, we don't wait for it to sit in our lap. You know, when something comes up, we do some research on it and whatnot because we're in the business of education. It's our business to know what's coming up, what are the trends are and stuff like that. So, yeah, you know, it's a never-ending quest for education in this business. The chef that stops learning is the chef that finally takes the big dirt nap. All right? It's dead 6 feet in the ground or on top of the ground in Louisiana. So.